Hello and welcome to an In Conversation With. My name is Emma Smith. I'm the project manager with Empowered Conversations, and that's a project of Age UK Salford. I'm really excited today to be in conversation with Natasha and Jason from Broughton House. Thank you both for giving your time today to share your work.
Thanks for having us. It's great to be here.
Yeah, great to be here.
Thanks everyone for joining us. If you've not been to one of these before, the plan for today is I'm going to give you a little bit of background on Empowered Conversations. I'm then going to hand over to Natasha and Jason to share their work, and then we're going to make sure that we have a decent Q&A at the end. So if you have any questions, you can whack them in the chat at any point, and we'll make sure that we pick those up and we get those questions answered. So if you haven't met us before, Empowered Conversations empower families to live as well as they can with dementia. And we do that by delivering communication courses. So we've got Empowered Conversations and we've got Moving Beyond Words. We also offer dementia-focused therapeutic support through empowered carers. We do regular webinars like this, and we have monthly groups. We have a bereavement group, and we also have a carers voice group. So that's who we are. We work across Greater Manchester as well, I should say, and we also deliver courses for professionals. I think that's all I need to say. So I'm going to hand over to Natasha and Jason now to share their work with us. I'm going to bring your presentation up. There you go. And I'm going to hand over to you.
Fab, thanks very much. So hi everyone, and thanks for joining us today. So we are from Broughton House, which you may or may not already be aware of. So we are based in the Salford area of Greater Manchester, and Broughton House, as it is a veterans care village, and we're talking to you today from the newly relaunched Armed Forces Support Hub. So we'll go on to describe a little bit about what that is after we've kind of established just a bit of history around the house, what we kind of already are in the area and what we're aiming to achieve. But yeah, so who we are, I am Natasha, and I am the Admiral Nurse for the home and for the local community.
I'm Jason. I'm a dementia care navigator, and we also have Sarah, who isn't with us today, but she's our complex care navigator.
Okay, so what you can see here, just a little bit of history on the amazing building that we're in and kind of where we've established from. So the building that you can see at the bottom is where we're sat at the moment. So we're in this beautiful new build, which was newly built during COVID, actually. And you can see that middle picture on the bottom row was a part and part build as we were moving out of the old manor house, the big white building, and into the purpose-built new one. So the original building was actually acquired in 1916. So we've been here since the First World War, and the purpose was that this house was established for injured soldiers who were returning from battle. And as you can imagine, 100 years later, that house was not so fit for purpose. Needed a lot of work doing on it. It was becoming very costly. We were increasing in numbers, and it needed renovating, to say the least. So a complete new build was done, and bit by bit was moved into during a pandemic. And some of those pictures at the top there were the original team of doctors and nurses in the middle. And the top right was the first ever resident. So this was Mr. Charlie Fox, who we've actually got a unit here named after. He was the first resident to live here. So he was injured fighting over in Belgium on the Western Front and was repatriated so that he could recover here and actually lived out all of his days here. And the guy on the top left is Sir William Coates. So he was our founder, just for a little bit of history on us. So on the next slide, I know this looks like a lot of writing. I've just popped it up there so people can read through it in their own time if they want. But it just says that our founder there also established the British Red Cross in the area of East Lancashire. And he set our home up here. He also initially drew out the plans for the Territorial Army. And we set ourselves up in World War I. We've been here ever since in one form or another. We were here during World War II as well to receive injured soldiers returning. We were an air raid shelter. and we also held carrier pigeons during that time. So a lot of military history within this building, but with the sole purpose of always caring for those injured returning from war. And during that time, we've cared for over 8,000 veterans and are still caring for veterans. And that's why we have become a village. So in the phrase of "it takes a village," we've adapted to the needs of veterans, and we know that those needs have massively changed over the years. So now requiring a completely holistic approach, including, bringing families in, adapting to what carers need, what everybody needs around them to support them as well, for people to live more independently, longer into their life. So we also have, alongside our care home, some independent living apartments. So they're on our site, but they're completely separate, separate entrance. People can live completely independently, but they can also access all the amenities that we have within the village. So what makes us a care village is that we have a on-site hair salon. We've got a purpose-built gym. So the machinery in the gym is focused on things like core strength, balance, all of the things that will affect that older generation as they're moving through their life and needing to maintain their core and their balance. And the adaptable machinery can also have things like wheelchairs attached onto the machinery, so everybody can access and maintain their fitness. We've got landscaped gardens here, and they're fully accessible. So they've been planted with all kinds of things that smell amazing. Wheelchairs can get all the way around the garden. We've got a fully licensed bar, which is very important when dealing with veterans. We've got a mini museum. So we've got a museum here which has got lots of military items. We've got lots of medals, lots of memorabilia. Some of it is from the residents that live here, but some of it has been donated just by locals, family members, people who've gone into a house and found things in the attic that's got military significance, and so they've brought it down to us. So we've got a real amazing collection of kind of military historical memorabilia and artifacts here, and a historian who's helped us to put those things together and curated our little museum here. We've also got an in-house physiotherapist. So our amazing Booths charity has funded an in-house physio who comes and spends some time here with our residents. We've got a minibus that we can use as well, our own adapted minibus that we can take our residents out to day trips and to groups. And they've been out to the monastery today at Broughton to take part in a singing with dementia group. So lots of things always going on like that as part of our wellbeing programme and activity programme. So it makes it more of a village as opposed to a solely residential home. And this again just aids further independence and helping families to be able to join in on all of the events that we've got going on. Members of the public can come and join in on certain things. We host regular events. People can come and look around the museum, things like that. And what we get a lot is we find people don't necessarily identify with the term veteran, or they're not sure if someone they're working with is a veteran, they might discount it straight away. So they might not ask the question if the person that they're working with is a veteran. And we often find that the picture someone has in their head is that a veteran is an old chap with their medals and their beret, like in this picture, usually gathered around a cenotaph on a very rainy day in November. But actually people don't picture that it might be a really young person, or it might be a woman, someone in their 20s, someone that they might never have asked the question when they're working with them, have you ever served in the military? And that question, the answer to that question might be yes, and might be surprising. So on the next slide, actually the definition of a veteran is anybody who has served more than one day in the British Armed Forces. And for us, that is Air Force, Army, Navy, Merchant Navy, and it's regulars, reservists. And it's important to note here as well that it's national service. So when we're working with people, especially as a dementia service and with people over a certain age, we can almost always guarantee that the people that we're working with, especially when we're going out into maybe day centres or other care homes, or we're working in dementia groups, that there is a high percentage of people who have served national service because of the age that they are. And when you're working with people of a certain age, it's very, very likely that they were conscripted, but they may not see themselves as a veteran, because in that day and in that time and of the mindset that they are, everybody just did that. And that was just part of living in Britain at that time, and it was just their job. So they might not tick that veteran box themselves. And if you ask them if they are a veteran, they might say no. But if you maybe word that differently and say, did you do any national service, or have you ever served in any military? The answer to that one might be yes. And so this is just some information for people to see kind of why it matters, why it matters for us in the local area. That actually the statistics, which are out of date now and so have likely increased, are that in Manchester in 2021, there were over 7,000 veterans living in the area. 66% of these had served in the regular army and 30% had served reservist. So there are a lot of veterans in the local area. And of these veterans in the local area, they were over twice more likely to report poor health compared with people who haven't served. So this is why it does matter, because those health outcomes for veterans are reported to be worse. So we've got here in the 2021 census, 15% of veterans within Manchester reported their health as being bad or very bad. And that was compared with 7%, slightly over 7% of people who hadn't served. So there you've got that figure of just over double of the outcome being worse for people who are veterans. And again, this all adds into why a specialist service. So there's times when we get asked, well, why just for veterans? You know, if everybody's struggling, everybody should get a service. And absolutely, and there's lots of services out there for lots of different people. And this just contributes towards some of us answering that question as to, you know, why a specialist service for veterans. So those figures on the last slide show that there are those people living there in our area in Greater Manchester. They are a high percentage, and they are showing that their health outcomes are worse compared to the general population. But also when we look at that breakdown of the older population and dementia, we already know that the percentage of dementia is rising. It's expected to double over the next 30 years. We've already got more than 700,000 people in the UK with dementia. And within these figures, the ex-service community in the UK is expected to now be that almost a half are over 75, and that nearly 2/3 of these are over 65. So within all of those statistics of how many people we are expected to have dementia in the coming years, we've also got an ever-aging population of a veteran community. So we can say that is also going to be an exponential growth of people within that ex-serving community who are likely to suffer with dementia. And as we know with everything, you know, early support and early intervention is really key. This is a unique group. So when we say why a specialist service, veterans do require a specific approach, people who understand them, people who understand what their family may be going through, that there are likely to also be other comorbidities, issues that are going back to their time of service that need to also be understood and treated sensitively. And so our support hub here is run by experts within that field. So people who have provided support to the ex-service community and people who are veterans, so have an understanding of what that support means and what approach that's required to take for this unique community. And then just a little bit about our referral process. So I know we're going to go on to discuss this maybe a little more, but we can come back to that and send it out to people because it's got our email and phone number on it, but that we accept referrals from all avenues. So any professionals, statutory services, charities, but also self-referrals. So someone can refer themselves, a family member can refer them. We do have a formal referral form, but what we're finding is that people more often than not are just picking up the phone to us, asking a couple of questions, saying, I'm not really sure if this is right, if this is the right service, or I've just been thinking about my dad and I just wanted to ask you some questions, and we're kind of going through a triage process that way. So we are taking kind of informal inquiries via email, via phone. We'll fill out some details, we'll do a triage, and then if it's appropriate, we'll just book in a full initial assessment from that point on. And that, in a nutshell, is a 100-year history of Broughton House, and a little bit about how we're trying to evolve to support veterans struggling in the community with dementia and their carers. And we're going to have a little bit more of a chat now, rather than me whizzing through a presentation.
That was brilliant. Thank you, Natasha. And what about the tea cozy from Florence Nightingale? I didn't know about that. That was a new fact for me today.
Yeah, a little tidbit in there for you.
Amazing. Jason, is there anything you want to add before we sort of move into more of a conversation?
I suppose we could just add that myself and Natasha are both veterans as well. So we're sort of expert by experience as well in that nature. So we've got, a real understanding from a personal point of view of, of being a veteran and how the system is and the way things are. And, we can really help go in depth with people about that. So, yeah. Other than that, no, it's just more, if anyone's got any questions, we'll try to answer them. If we can't, we'll go away. And if people wanted to leave their emails in the chat as well, we're more than happy to get back to people with things if we can't answer them now.
Thanks, Jason. Is that across the board then at Broughton House? Are quite a lot of the staff members veterans?
No, actually, all three of us within the hub are veterans, and there's maybe 3 more in the whole of Broughton House, so not as many as you would think. Yeah, but everyone within the support hub is me and Natasha are both veterans, and Sarah's still serving in the reserves.
That's really interesting. So, you talked about veterans facing poorer health. Why is it? What is it that you go through when you're in armed forces that sort of mean that your health is going to be poorer as you get older?
I suppose carrying extra kit when you're away on tour of duty. Your knees, that's a real big one. That often physical health is your knees and your back. A lot of veterans report needing knee replacements, hip replacements, and back surgery quite a lot. So physical wise is that, and then mental wise is mental health massive. It's a massive degree of mental health issues from obviously what people have went through and what they've seen, and on operational tours and things like that. So health side is both physically and mentally is a lot worse than your average person within civilian street. So yeah, that has a lasting effect on the community.
Thanks, Jason. If you have any questions for Jason and Natasha, whack them in the chat now. Natasha, so I just wanted to build on the point from Jason there about mental health and just thinking about dementia. So that's like an added element there. So we've got mental health issues from serving, and then dementia, and how complex that can become for individuals and for those people around supporting them. I wondered if you could tell us a bit more about that and some examples.
Yeah. Well, what we have seen, and actually the research currently is quite minimal, but there is some research to show that there is a correlation between a comorbid diagnosis of PTSD and the likelihood of later being diagnosed with dementia. And we anecdotally see that much more So I know the research currently is minimal, but is showing that correlation. But what we are seeing is that is very prevalent, and that it definitely shows a difference in presentation of the person and understanding of those around them, or lack of sometimes in medical professionals and environmental situations. So we're doing a lot of work with hospitals and other kind of medical settings and health settings around understanding dementia in this population and how dementia might present in a veteran, and the differences in terms of what can be labelled as hostile and aggressive and kind of challenging behaviour, and putting that into the context of a underlying PTSD diagnosis and an underlying trauma and a lifetime of service. So we do have sometimes hospital wards, for example, and I'm not singling out hospitals here, but it's a good example. So we'll have hospital wards who will say to us, you know, we can't manage this person, or this person wouldn't be appropriate for any kind of care home setting or any kind of residential place, or we've no idea what to do because they're so aggressive, you know, they hit out at everybody, or they're always displaying this challenging behaviour, like they're trying to get under everybody's beds, or they're trying to get under the nursing station desk. And we'll go in, and there's a time where I've done a complete assessment on someone, and there's been triggers for the person, for example, getting under the bed when alarms have been going off around them. And it's not been noted on that person's record that they're a veteran, and that there are certain triggers going back to their service history and an underlying PTSD that are going to mean that they will respond and react in a certain way to stimuli that others might not, and taking into account that there is a trauma underneath the dementia. And the two combined can be really challenging for other people to manage and to understand. And if that person's perceiving you as a threat for whatever reason, it will come across as hostile and aggressive. But managing someone with dementia and trauma and understanding chicken and egg effect and what you treat first and how you treat which one, and in this case environment, is so important. It already is with dementia and with PTSD, but you put the two together, it becomes one of the key ways of managing this is environment, you know, and noise and stimuli.
And is that something at Broughton House that you're sort of really aware of? So in terms of the environment, you know, like alarms or whatever, you know, is it very different to another care home just because of the setup, thinking about making it as a nicer setting as possible for people to live in?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's a massive factor that we take into account, that might not be as high on other residential homes priorities, because we are a veteran care village. So by nature of the fact that our criteria is for people who have served in the military or their immediate family, but that they have that link to the armed forces. So we have that kind of front and foremost at everything that we do, and the environment is really important in that and reflects understanding those unique needs, and is a large factor, I guess, in the decision making for a lot of families, and people deciding that this is the home for them compared to potentially other homes if they're looking at transitioning to residential. If they've spent time in service and having somewhere that understands that and is set up for those needs. But not just that, I mean, we're working also with people in the community, and so helping families sometimes to understand that it might be that this presentation hasn't been there for the person's whole life, but that it's coming out now at a later point. And for some families, they've just never seen this side of the person before. But as we know, things come out later on, things come out with a dementia diagnosis, with dementia symptoms that you've never seen before. And people may have locked away their time of service. They might not talk about it. They might have never mentioned it to their family, and now it's all coming out. We've also got people who were maybe with someone different whilst they were serving, or not with the person that they are now with, or they didn't have their children. And so now the person that they're with, their partner and their children, are finding out about this whole time of their life that they actually didn't know about. So it's supporting, people in the community, that families, carers, spouses, in understanding potentially this part of the life that they didn't know about for their loved one, and a new presentation and ways of dealing with it and what it means. So not necessarily just in a care home environment, but in everyday life and in triggers in the home, and everything that you have to consider with dementia and the home environment, and then adding in that military background as well.
It's just massive, isn't it? It's so big. We were talking earlier, we are talking about, it's a very niche area that we're talking about, because we're talking about veterans, dementia, and a geographical area of Salford and the surrounding area. So it is very niche, but it is just huge. And it just made me think then, do you offer, I know you offer support to families, but do you offer training to families around this? Because it feels that those sort of, that information that you've just shared with us, like getting that out to a wider platform, like through a course or something, would be helpful for people.
I think if that came across to us, we would just look to find anything for them as well, as an extra. We'll just try and give the best possible care and support to veterans' families and the veteran itself. So if that means that they think they need training, or we think they need training, we will find it and provide it.
Brilliant. Without obviously sharing any names, can you give us an example of someone that you can think of from the community who has massively benefited from the support that you're offering, just to give people a flavour of what it is that you do?
So we had someone come in a month or so ago, and they regularly come in now to coffee mornings, and they've met up with old friends that are currently living here and stuff. So that was really nice for them to see that person within the home and how they're being treated and how well they're doing. And we got that positive feedback from them as well. It was really great to see such and such, when we came in for the coffee morning, that positive feedback is exactly what we're looking for, and it then made them feel even more welcome to come and see that person, and also come and take part in a coffee morning and access the support and help that they need.
Yeah. And what we're finding is, and this happened with this person, is that their children came first to kind of have a look and see what they thought, and see what we might be able to offer to the family in way of support, because the family were really struggling, because their loved one wouldn't go and access any support anywhere, was being, and I can say this, a very typical stubborn veteran, wouldn't go and seek any support anywhere, was absolutely fine, didn't need anything, but actually the family were really struggling because of that. And so they'd reached out for some support and to ask for, any tips on how they might be able to kind of encourage this a little bit more. They'd tried getting some carers out to the house. They've been turned away every time, things thrown at them and all sorts of the usual presentations that we can get. But they wanted to come and see if actually it might be able to coax the person to come to more of a military themed anything that we might be able to have. So if we had a coffee morning or a group or anything that they might be able to kind of get their loved one to, where they weren't able to kind of get them to anything that they saw as being for dementia or elderly people or people who needed help, because as they saw it, they didn't need that. But what the family thought was that they might be able to actually get them to something if they could frame it as, well, you're just going to go and meet some of your old service buddies. You might meet someone who you served with, or wouldn't it be nice to go meet with, some old chaps who understand and you can share your stories. And sell it that way instead. And they were right. So we said, we can absolutely invite you into a coffee morning. You can only try it, see if they'll come with you. They might say no, like we know, won't get in the car, won't go, or won't get out the car the other end. But we said, absolutely come along and let's see. And we'll get a few people from within the home down who we know were a bit more chatty and a bit more engaging and who had served in the same branch of service. First time, obviously, we just took a little bit of time to warm up, took another couple of goes to be a bit more chatty, a bit more engaging. And then the most recent coffee morning that the person came to with their family, they were chatting away, they were engaging, they were having coffee and a cake with people, with residents that live here that they recognised from last time, catching up, exchanging old war stories. And yeah, like Jason said, actually the wife of the person had spotted someone who'd lived on an old street and they'd been chatting away, and so that's respite then for that person. The family can breathe for a couple of hours because they're just somewhere different. It's change of scenery. They can relax. They're not on edge. The person's safe here. It's a safe environment. So yeah, it's those couple of hours out for everybody involved who can just have a brew and a relax. They can chat to us and get some support. But that person then is in a social environment. They're having a chat, they're getting that interaction that they've previously not been getting because they've been, I don't want to say refusing, but they've been very reluctant, to engage in the other types of groups that had been kind of labelled in a certain way. And we are finding that there are veteran-specific support groups and there are dementia-specific support groups, and it's quite difficult to kind of cross them over. So we find that people who have dementia struggle in a veteran support group because they might be slightly younger, or they're just not quite catered to it. They're a bit loud, they're a bit rowdy. They're usually in a pub. And then we have the dementia groups, which sometimes they say, I'm not going to that because that's just full of old people with dementia and I'm not doing it. And so we're kind of trying to combine the two and maybe label it a different way and coax them in. And once they're here, they find it's actually not that bad. And they meet people who they can share some stories with. And we go from there, and the families can breathe a sigh of relief then and have a chat with us on the side.
Fantastic. Sorry, Marion. Marion said, hi, everyone. Dancing with Dementia. Hi, Marion. Hope you're well. I did get a chance to give you a little wave then. I think Jason and Natasha, so as well. Yeah, brilliant. Coffee mornings. How regular are the coffee mornings?
They're once a month. So we're just in the process of putting an advert out and kind of making that having a bit of a relaunch of them. But they are likely to be the last or third Wednesday morning of every month. And we've been messing around with the dates because we found that if we say the last Wednesday, it falls into a different week, and then we have to specify the date very clearly. So we've just been messing around with the dates, but I think we're going to be doing the third Wednesday morning of every month, a coffee morning here at Broughton House, and anyone can come along to that.
That's brilliant. If you've got any questions, whack them in there. I've got another question, right? So say, right, I'm in the community and it's my family. So my partner is a veteran. I phone you and I say, oh, crikey, I need some support. I'm at my wit's end. What happens? Do you come see me? Do you come to my house? What happens?
So we don't actually go out to people's houses. We would either invite them in or to a community space, so i.e. like a veterans coffee morning, or the hubs that are about, or a more public space. There isn't really a particular reason for that. It's just to make them feel a bit more comfortable, but also to get them to come in and see the environment of Broughton House as well. But also if they're comfortable at their local hub or breakfast club, it tends to be better for them. So yeah, we would invite you in to Broughton House or to one of them, and then go from there. Really, do like a triage, like Natasha said earlier, and then maybe a little bit more of an in-depth assessment once we come back and we get together and decide as a team where best support is possible for them.
It encourages people out of the house as well sometimes, and it's not always possible. So there's circumstances where we have to, on a case-by-case basis, assess whether there's something different we can do. They can't get out of the house, and we have to adapt. But we're trying to encourage a bit more interaction and a bit more socialising, and kind of getting out of the house and seeing that coming to somewhere like this isn't as bad as you might have built up in your head. And that by coming here, we're also not just going to immediately sign you up to a residential care home. That's not the point of it. And that you can attend somewhere like this for a coffee morning, have a great time, and then leave again. And that it's not that scary. So for the person and for the family as well, it kind of breaks down those barriers and that stigma around, hopefully, around the care environment too. Because we don't want that kind of looming fear over people of the care industry and services, that they might potentially need down the line. But also we're not bringing them in to kind of sign them up as well. So we want them to have a positive experience.
I see we've got a question there, sorry.
You have got a question. Which of the services were you both in, Natasha and Jason?
So I was in the Royal Artillery for 7 years, in the regular army. I was medically discharged, so came out and did a few different things and stuff, and then just found myself now here at Broughton House.
Yeah. And I was in the reserves for 7 or 8 years. So yeah, I was in, I'm a QA, which is a QA, which is Queen Alexandra's Royal Army Nursing Corps, which is why we say QA, because it's a bit of a mouthful. So I was attached to a field hospital for that time.
Thanks both. I mean, Broughton House is a really beautiful space. It's the main area where you do your coffee mornings is lovely, and you've got the museum there as well. But there is, there's a huge stigma, isn't there? And there's a huge fear for people about care homes because, once you get a diagnosis of dementia, just how the information's put out there in the press and the media is that you get dementia, you go to a care home, that's it. Thank you very much. That's the end for you. And that's unfortunately the story that's out there, isn't it? And it's huge for people, and it's huge for their families as well, because however many years they've listened to, don't put me in a care home, you won't put me in a care home, will you? So you get this too. You get someone scared about going in the care home, and also the other person thinking, well, I can't put you in a care home because for the last 50 years you said don't put me in a care home.
Yeah.
And it's so tricky, isn't it?
Yeah. And so it's really important to kind of walk that line in an appropriate way. So we want to break down that stigma and kind of break down those barriers, like I said before, but not overface people. So we don't, if somebody's only in the very early stages, or they've just been diagnosed, and then we invite them into a care home, and they think, oh, does this mean this is my life now? I've just been diagnosed and this is it. So we've got to be really mindful and really sensitive and appropriate with the way that we're aware that we are operating out of a care home when we're dealing with community clients and families that we're supporting. And if it's not appropriate for them, then it's not appropriate for them, or they're really uncomfortable, or for whatever reason they absolutely don't want to come here and can't come here. But we also think it's really important, like you said, for those reasons, that people see that it's not as terrifying as sometimes it's made out to be, or it can seem in the media, or that all those fears that families have around care homes can be sometimes alleviated, and that you can come and attend an event or an activity, and then you can leave again, and it's not so scary sometimes.
Definitely. Well, it wasn't scary at all for when I came, and I had some fantastic skincare advice from one of your older residents there, who told me what I needed to do to stay young, because he is he over 100, or is he coming up to 100?
He's about to turn 101
in December. Yeah.
So don't drink much water. So this is the advice I want to take away. Don't drink much water. He had a right go at me because I'd come on my bike and I had a big tub of water with me. Read the Bible every day, and then
don't eat cake.
Don't eat cake.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you want to follow that advice. Yeah, I forgot about that.
I think when he was departing this advice on you, Emma, I think was he sat waiting for the gym as well?
He was like, yeah, really like, I want to get in the gym. Yeah.
Yeah, he's an inspiration to us all, isn't he? Puts us to shame, sat waiting for the gym in the morning at 100 years old.
And that was after he'd said, are you a lass or a lad? To me. I was like, I'm a lass. So there we go. So that's your advice, everyone. Don't drink much water, read the Bible every day, and don't eat cake. And then, I mean, he does have like the best skin I've ever seen on anyone over the age of 70, let alone 100. So it's amazing. Brilliant. Have you got any more questions, or are we bringing this to an end? So if people want to refer, if people are on here, if they're watching that on YouTube and think, oh, crikey, this is great for us, what geographical area do you cover? How can we be very specific so people know exactly who you'll support?
So we cover the whole of Greater Manchester.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the whole of Greater Manchester. I've been a bit cagey. I've said I've gone, oh, Salford and the surrounding area, but it's the whole of Greater Manchester. And if you're a veteran, or if a family member's a veteran, they can access the support. Is that right?
So but it's a little bit wider than that. In that, if the person is a veteran, then we will support them and their family. But also, if you are a veteran and you're caring for someone with dementia, so because we're then still supporting veterans. So essentially, the charity mission of Broughton House is that we care for veterans, and so the Armed Forces Support Hub here and kind of our modus operandi of supporting veterans with dementia kind of comes under if the veteran has dementia, is living with dementia, or the veteran is supporting somebody with dementia, then we're still supporting a veteran, and we're supporting someone with dementia, and we can kind of marry the two together. So yeah.
Anyone in anyone in Greater Manchester who's a veteran affected by dementia, and that's either personally or supporting somebody living with dementia. Yeah. That's quite easy to.
Yeah.
He's just joined us.
Special guest.
Guest appearance.
Gertie isn't a veteran, I'll just tell you. She's just lived her life in Salford, very easy life. But
if someone's not sure as well on their criteria, you can just give us a ring. So if you're not sure if it's your auntie's, I don't know, someone might have served at some point, you're not sure if you're eligible, just give us a ring and tell us the connection and what's going on for you, and we'll just be really open about it. Because we've had a couple of people ring and say, well, this person's not a veteran, but this person is, and well, actually my mum married this person and then they had a son and my son's serving, and so sometimes people will try and kind of like stretch who the person is who's serving, and actually we can kind of accommodate them.
But the aim ultimately is to support veterans.
Yeah.
So as long as we reach that goal, we're happy to support.
Support veterans affected by dementia living in Greater Manchester. I think we've cracked it there. That's the message, isn't it? And how do people, so you talked about they can phone up, but what's the best route in for people if they're watching this and thinking, I need to have a chat with Jason or Natasha?
As you said, just either email, ring up, or you can go to Broughton House's website as well. We're currently just about to launch our part of the website, but the number and the email address is on the website for you to access. But other parts of the hub and stuff like that will be on the website soon, to fully help people access support.
Thanks, Jason. Last question, Natasha. It's quite unusual to have an Admiral nurse attached to a care home.
Yeah.
Is that the answer? That was my question. It was a funny question. But it's unusual, isn't it? You don't get many Admiral nurses attached to a care home. So is that just the ethos of Broughton House, is that they wanted to go a little bit further and make sure that veterans affected by dementia have the best support available?
Yeah, essentially it is unusual, like you said, rare. And yeah, it is just a step forward for Broughton House in making sure that they're delivering the best possible dementia care to the residents that live here. And that was employing a dementia nurse, an Admiral nurse. So I work within Broughton House as a care home, and also now, you know, establishing the hub so that we can reach out to veterans living in the community too. But yeah, it is unusual and just part of the ethos of wanting to be the best possible, delivering the best possible care and, you know, evidence-based and best practice, and that is having an Admiral nurse. So it's really about just advancing the dementia offer that's here for the residents that are already living here.
Brilliant. And would you say that, sorry, I know there's a question there. I was just going to ask a quick question.
Yeah.
Have a lot of the residents got dementia who are living in Broughton House?
Yeah. We've seen a increase, as I believe a lot of residential homes have, within a short period of time. So, and we have seen since COVID, and I think this isn't just us as well, from speaking with other Admiral nurses and other care homes and statutory services, but we've seen an increase since COVID in the severity and the stage that people are kind of coming to residential care. So people trying to stay at home as long as possible, and families struggling to cope often at home for as long as they can. And I think the financial side of it all has a massive factor to play in that, since a lot of things have changed and a lot of costs have gone up, and there's been all kinds of government change and policy change and things. So yeah, we are seeing that there are more dementia residents now, or residents with dementia needs developing. But we're also seeing that people are coming to us kind of way into their 90s. You know, previously that would be much younger, and they're coming to us with more complex dementia presentations, dementia needs, but also physical health needs and presentations, just a lot more complex in how they are kind of presenting at the time that they are coming to residential care than ever before.
We've got a question from Zoe. Hi, Natasha. Have you any plans to provide ongoing case management or care coordination for complex cases within beneficiary homes?
Not sure, Zoe. I would have to get back to you on that, but we can have a conversation definitely separately. So I've been liaising with Zoe, who is our RBL representative. Yeah, I can look into it, Zoe, and get back to you on that. I'm not sure, honest answer.
Thank you. And that's Royal British Legion. I'm using the language here, RBL. QA RBL. Thank you both so much for joining us today. It's been really, really interesting to find out more about what you do there and the support that you're offering people. So thank you for giving your time. Thank you everyone for coming along today. We have, you like this one, Natasha, I think. We've got another In Conversation happening on the 9th of October, and it's with Emma Riley, who's going to be looking at why we need to keep our mouths clean. And she's going to share issues they encounter supporting people with dementia with oral health and offering up some tips to help. So there you go. That's what's happening next with an In Conversation. That's on the 9th of October. Thank you both so very much. I'm going to say goodbye, and I'll see you all soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks very much for having us.
Thanks everyone else.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks everyone.